we see all these awesome Reds prospects? Find out next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. Today is Saturday, May 13th. I am Frank Sanford, joined by Scott White. And at the time that you're listening to this, Yuri Perez has already made his debut on Friday night, but we're recording this on Thursday. So we're not going to talk about that. Instead, we're going to talk about the 5 prospects on the verge of being called up, which includes Taj Bradley, Jordan Walker, Christian Encarnacion-Strand, Jordan Westburg, and Colton Cowser. Scott, I want to focus mostly on the Orioles, and then we'll get to the Reds in just a little bit here. But Jordan Westburg and Colton Cowser, these guys are mashing in the minors right now. Any idea when we might see them up with the Orioles?
I think Jordan Westburg is going to be very soon because they lost Ramon Arias recently, and he's going to be down for a while with a hamstring injury. It's not a minimum IL stint situation. Here's what GM Mike Elias had to say. Mike Elias, I guess, had to say about it. About Jordan Westburg. He's somebody that we're still monitoring and discussing and paying very close attention to on a nightly basis. I think right now, with the opponents we've got here coming up, we're going with this group, but we're keeping an eye on all those guys, him included. So what I interpreted that to mean is they called up Brian O'Hearn a first baseman instead of Westburg. 6 righties coming up. So, they probably just wanted the big hulking lefty bat for that stretch, but they're going to need a more versatile defender. Westburg is capable of playing third base, primarily a shortstop. He can play anywhere on the infield, really. And he's hit for a lot of power the last 2 years, especially this year at AAA. And it seems to be legitimate. Not as especially disciplined hitter. I don't think the ceiling is super high. But if you're in the sort of league where you're hurting for shortstops off the waiver wire, any league with a middle infield spot probably, then you might want to go ahead and stash Westburg. As for Cowser, Elias, man, I don't know how to say his name. He was a little less optimistic in the timetable for him, and there isn't a clear opening, and Anthony Santander's heated up. But he is a really good, a better prospect overall, I would say, than Jordan Westburg. Good on base skills, and I think we'll see him soon enough.
All right, 5 prospects that are on the periphery. These are just prospects that are doing something recently, not necessarily close, although some of these Cincinnati Reds guys. Let's talk about them. Matt McLain, who is a shortstop with the Reds. Elly De La Cruz, also a shortstop with the Reds. Henry Davis, a catcher with the Pirates. Ben Brown, a starting pitcher with the Cubs. And Hunter Goodman, a catcher with the Rockies. Scott, let's talk about all the Reds hitters right now. Matt McLain, Elly De La Cruz, and you did have Christian Encarnacion-Strand in the 5 prospects on the verge. We keep getting questions. When are these guys coming up? What order are they going to be called up in? It's pretty hard to pinpoint that, but if you had to guess, what would you say?
I would guess the order they're going to be called up is Christian Encarnacion-Strand, which is why he was in the 5 on the verge, Matt McLain, and Elly De La Cruz. Now, the most talented is Elly De La Cruz, and in fact, he had a game this week where he hit 3 balls more than 116 miles per hour. In the entire history of StatCast, no team has had a game with 3 balls hit at least 116 miles per hour. And Elly De La Cruz did it himself, resulting in 2 home runs, 1 from each side of the plate, mind you, and a double. The double, by the way, was the hardest hit ball in professional baseball, majors and minors included this year. So, serious upside here. Also serious contact issues against minor league pitchers, which is why I think they're going to slow play this. Obviously, the Reds aren't playing for anything this year. They could take their time with Elly De La Cruz. But it is the sort of talent where you could see them just throwing caution to the wind, saying, heck with it. This guy is too good to be in the minors. Let's get him up. I could see that happening. I would bet against it, though. Meanwhile, Matt McLain, his numbers, leaving StatCast measurements out of it, just the the traditional baseball numbers for Matt McLain's are ridiculously impressive, more impressive than Elly De La Cruz's. Batting around 330, about 2/3 of the way to his career high in home runs already. He hit for the cycle this past week. Second time in his minor league career he has, in fact. And he's beginning to remind me a little of like an Alex Bregman type, because he's small. He doesn't have a lot of like raw power, but he gets the most out of what he has, and he's obviously going to be playing in a venue when he gets in Cincinnati that is going to help him optimize his power as well. Great on base skills like Alex Bregman. The Reds' worst position this year has been shortstop. They don't have a good answer at shortstop, and that's primarily what both Elly De La Cruz and Matt McLain play. Actually, Elly De La Cruz, between the two, he's the one already on the 40-man roster. It's another reason that muddles the situation further. But McLain's 2 years older, and as I said, he has the better numbers. My guess is he'll be up relatively soon. But Christian Encarnacion-Strand even before that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, Scott, if they call up Encarnacion-Strand and Matt McLain at the same time. Those guys seem to be knocking on the door. I agree with you on Elly De La Cruz. The highest upside of this group, but a little more raw than those other two, and I think maybe they slow play it a little bit more with Elly De La Cruz. We'll see him later on in the season. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again next week. Bye-bye!